All right, folks, thanks for being with us today. We have Oscar De La Torre, who is a candidate for city council,
Mhm.
not just a candidate, but an incumbent. So you're
Correct.
running for your second term.
Yes.
So, why don't you take a minute and tell folks who you are and why you're running for office?
Well, my name is Oscar de la Torre. I'm running for re-election to the city council because I love the city and I want to make it a better city. I want to make it a safer city, a more vibrant city for all of our residents and for visitors as well. Um, in 2020, I ran for city council because our city was being mismanaged. I mean, we had a crisis, on our hands, on the brink of bankruptcy. I mean, we had no police chief, no city manager. It was just chaos. We had, a lot of bad things going on. And so that inspired me to get involved, to step in, to make a difference. And we've done some good things. I think we started a new momentum in the city for a safer city. We've increased funding for our police department. We brought in new technologies, drone technology, for example, a smart center to enhance our public safety. We've done a lot to protect renters. We made sure that the rent hikes weren't as great as they could have been. So I'm very proud of the vote that I took on that. Uh, you know, we have a lot more work to do, and one term is just not enough. So that's why I'm running for reelection. Um, there's a group of candidates that are running right now, and they want to return power to the people that have brought us many of the problems that we're trying to solve, and many of the problems that we are dealing with right now in our city. So um, we are ready for the fight. We want to represent our residents. That's first and foremost. Who we care most about, their safety, their livability, and their well-being.
Hmm.
And I'm a father. I've served 18 years on the school board. I ran a youth center for 20 years, so I care deeply about the city, and I care about making this a good city, a better city, and that's what I intend to do in this next term.
Got it. So, I'm glad you mentioned the school board history and stuff because it's not like 2020 was your emergence onto the scene.
Correct.
You've been here a long time.
Yes.
Um, and I just want to talk about your history in the city for a second because at least I think there is something that paradoxical, perhaps, that at this point in time, you are running to make the city of Santa Monica safer. It's a big part of your
Mhm.
theme, and touting police in spending and equipment and all these kinds of things. But your history with the Santa Monica Police Department hasn't always been friendly.
Oh
Put it
yeah.
that way, right?
Yeah. Correct.
And you were a longtime critic of the police department, and so I'm sort of interested in hearing how you have evolved and how whether it's you that has evolved into your current role as someone who is sort of if not a champion of the police department,
Mhm.
then certainly a supporter of them, or if the department changed or the community changed, or how you reconcile where you were a few years ago with where you are now in this capacity.
Well, that's a very, very interesting question. For me, what it comes down to is I think as I've gotten older, being a father, you start realizing that ideology only gets you so far, and I don't want to live in an ideological bubble. Like we have problems, I want to solve those problems. It's interesting because when I started the youth center, it was really all about public safety. I mean, we had a series of homicides like since 1982 until like 2000, the year 2000. We had like 68 homicides in an 8 block radius in
Mm-hmm.
Santa Monica's Pico neighborhood. So when I started the youth center, I think it was, for me, even though I saw it as a prevention intervention program, really it was also about public safety. So I've been fighting, to make this a safer city for a long time. There's differences, when I first started, it's a lot of ego, people not understanding sort of the work that I was doing. Father Greg Boyle in Boyle Heights, he had told me that when he first started, police were also very much against, him because they thought that we were sort of protecting the gang members,
Mm-hmm.
instead of trying to change, the social conditions that allow for young people to join gangs. Um, so I think for me, what's important is that we need to work in partnership. Like public safety is not just a police response; it's a community response, and it's also about not just supporting policing. Let's say, for example, some people think we're supporting police abuse. Like that's not what we're supporting. We're supporting constitutional policing. I really do believe that effective policing goes hand in hand with like respect, and also respecting people's, not respecting people's rights, not abusing authority. So when I say I support, police, we're supporting effective but also constitutional and respectful policing,
Hmm.
and that's really important for me. So for me, that's what's changed. Is that I realize that we need to work in partnership. The other thing is we don't have a history in Santa Monica, of some of the things that we are very alarmed by, in other parts of the country or even Los Angeles. There hasn't been, the type of, um, you know, incidents where police have killed people, for
Hmm.
example, accidentally, or because of they profiled somebody. That's not the history of the Santa Monica Police Department. And I grew up, experiencing, some incidents that were not very nice,
Hmm.
between law enforcement and myself and young people, that I was growing up with in the Pico neighborhood. So I'm very aware of what, bad policing is. And I'm also very aware that the police department in Santa Monica has made incredible, reform, incredible changes. Where there's a police oversight commission now.
Hmm.
Um, we also have, I think, way higher standards than most police departments, in terms of the education level of our police officers. So I'm very proud, uh, to stand up, with our police department. I think it's a great police department. I think it's a police department that we can all be proud of.
So sticking on public safety, you mentioned safer and vibrant. We'll get to vibrant in a second, but sticking on public safety for a second, what what are you what programs are you hoping to continue? What are you looking to change? How are you looking to improve public safety in the city?
Well, first and foremost, providing the resources that we need, to effectively police, our city. Our city is like 94,000 people, but in the summer we can be, 500,000,
Hmm.
people. So we have to really assess: do we have the adequate staffing pattern, to meet those public safety needs? So that's something that we're diving into right now. I think I feel really comfortable committing to 250
Hmm.
sworn officers. Um, and so that's one thing
Which
that we need to do.
is an increase of about 20 or so from what we're currently budgeted at,
Correct, correct,
in round numbers.
correct. It's also very expensive, so we need to find a balance. I mean, we have to keep libraries open and other social services, and which are also all part of public safety. I mean, one thing I've learned from running the youth center for 20 years is that you need prevention, intervention, and enforcement working simultaneously. So let's say, for example, like you take homelessness, right? We need to prevent people from becoming homeless. So if somebody has a hard time paying the rent, like we should avoid those evictions. Like I want to make sure that we do more. We right now we're doing a preserving our diversity. We fund that program, which helps our seniors, stay housed.
Hmm.
But I want to expand that, to provide an emergency fund so that anyone in the city of Santa Monica that runs, into a hard place and can't pay the rent, that we can help them out so that they're not displaced. So prevention is important. Intervention for those people that are on the streets right now that are suffering from mental illness or drug addiction. We need to provide the appropriate interventions, to help them out. And then enforcement. Enforcement is a tool. Actually, the way our police department is working with our unhoused population, I think we're going to create a new model of how to do it right, because police, we can't arrest ourselves out of these social problems. And I think police will have now the tools to talk, to people, assess situations. If we need to bring in a therapeutic team, that will be the next layer, of intervention. And so a clinician is part of that
Hmm.
therapeutic team. They will come, assess a situation, assess if we need to do an involuntary hold or a voluntary hold. But ultimately, the goal is to provide services, to get people into temporary shelter, to get people transition from temporary shelter to permanent shelter, and to provide the various services, that people need, so that they can be self-sufficient.
And the therapeutic, are you suggesting that that's a new program that you're going to expand or bring in, or are you referencing the existing therapeutic transport van that we have?
Yes, so we have. When I first ran in 2020, that was a big thing that I committed to advocating for. The county right now is providing teams, therapeutic teams, that are working already with our first responders. So police and fire can tap into that service so that they can come in and provide those supports for our police and fire. So that's already on the ground. Also, we funded for the fire department. We funded these community resource units, these
Hmm.
CRUs. So we want to strengthen that because the reality is, I mean, we spend more than over $100 million in policing, and last year 67% of all the arrests were of unhoused individuals. I
Hmm.
mean, that's incredible. And then with our fire department, close to 50%, of all the calls that they're dealing with is of people that are passed out, unhoused, either drug overdoses or alcohol poisoning. So we need to really align our tactics, right, our approach with the current social conditions. I mean, it's not about arresting so much, even though I think we do need to do that, in cases, where it's impacting, the quality of life of our residents. But what we need to do is just have a better outreach strategy, a better intervention strategy, on the street for people that are suffering from mental illness or substance abuse.
So we have the transport van, but it only works whatever it is, Monday to
Like, yeah, it's
Friday,
nine to
nine
five.
to five, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so no one would ever dispute what you've said we need. Absolutely. I guess one of my questions when folks go down this sort of route with us is like, A, no one disputes we need that. And if no one really disputes we need all those things, why don't we already have them? And if the answer is we don't have them because they're expensive, then where are you going to get the money to pay for those expansions from?
Well, there's going to be some revenue creating measures that are on the ballot right now. So there's um, a
The
parking
parking
the
tax.
parking tax, that could generate, I think, up to, like, I think I can't remember the number, but I want to say almost 6 million or 3 point something million. Um, we also have these other industry. We have a lot of hotels that are on their way, of being built. The Regent, is about to
Hmm.
reopen October 1st. So we should be able to get a lot of TOT out of that. So there's going to be some revenue streams that I think we can tap into to pay for those services. The county right now is running the pilot. It's a pilot program. So at the end of
The
um,
therapeutic
the
van is a
therapeutic
pilot.
vans, yeah, it's a pilot. So at the end of the year, so like January, we're going to assess what we need to do to strengthen that program. I think it's going to be very promising. I did a tour with them the other day, and they were explaining to me how it works. And they've already made a considerable amount of contacts, with people on the street. So we think that that's going to help out as well. And we're working with Metro. They started a new tap sort of verification pilot, to
Hmm.
make sure that people aren't just getting on the subway, and coming to Santa Monica. We think that's going to lead to some positive inroads in terms of improving the Metro's end of line practices, right? So without that, I mean, we Metro was, I heard, like, dropping off 50 to 60 people on any given night in our downtown, right? Like,
Hmm.
around 11:30 p.m., like the last stop.
Yeah.
And so we're working with them, to make sure that there's more services, that people aren't just dumped into the our downtown with no support, with no services. We think that's not compassionate. We want to do better.
So again, I kind of come back to like, yes, everyone's going to say yes,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you're doing those things, we're kind of working on these things. Like I guess it doesn't feel like it's getting better to folks, right? It doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
And I think people are looking for more than just being told, "Hey, we're working on it." People are wanting to hear, and people may be wrong, but I do think people want to hear what's going to change if they elect you or if they elect someone else, right?
Okay.
And so what I'm hearing from what you've said is that you've started a bunch of good projects, right?
Hmm.
You've started a bunch of things, and my summation of what you're saying here is that you've started a bunch of things that will bear fruit in the short to medium term,
Hmm.
and that, again, my words, you'd like people to see how that plans out, right? You need to keep pushing on those things. Totally get that. What's new? Like, what's the new idea you have? What's the new policy? What's the thing that you'd like to pitch, broach, change, evolve that maybe you haven't had a chance to start yet, or that you think the city's missing from its puzzle pieces here?
I'd like to work, with our city's leadership to create a public safety resource team. So we did this when we were approaching gang violence and youth development issues in the city of Santa Monica. What happens in government is that people work in silos. So the police department is, a lot of times working separately from, like, the social service providers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to form a culture of collaboration, right, between the various different nonprofits. I mean, there's various nonprofits that are providing services to the homeless. We have our own internal staff that focus on homelessness. We have our police department that also has HLP teams, which are homeless liaison, program officers just that directly work with the unhoused population. So we need to bring all these people together, so there has to be a format, a platform where that could work. So it could be at the beginning, sort of monthly meetings, where people are collaborating, sharing data. Here's what I envision and how it could have a really positive impact. So for example, there's an unhoused individual that is, seen stealing at Bevmo. He's gone in 3 times in the past 3 months. I mean, three times in the past month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Went in there, stole some stuff. They have him on camera. The police now know who this person is because they've contacted him in the past. The police now are giving this information to the social service providers. And the social service providers, they know this person because he shows up for food, let's say every Thursday at
Mm-hmm.
San Michelle, whatever service that he accesses, right? So now there's an opportunity to talk to that person to say, look, we have you on camera. Like, this is you, you know what I'm saying? The information came from the police department, and we're going to have to cut off services to you if you continue behaving this way. Like, here we are helping you out, right? If our city is helping someone out, then they need to also watch the behavior. We have to hold people accountable so that we can't just be enabling people's bad behavior. We have to hold them accountable, so I envision a process, a system, a protocol where law enforcement, social service providers are communicating, where we're holding people accountable for the bad behavior, and therefore maybe we can stop some of that bad behavior, because the other reality is that police arresting someone for like stealing a bottle of alcohol, it's a citation now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, no one's going to jail, for these things. And that's a bigger problem around, Prop 47. We have Prop 36 to reverse that, on the ballot, and also, what the district attorney, and the
Mm-hmm.
with Gascon and all that. So there's going to be some reform, I think, coming our way that's going to, I think, improve the conditions so that we can hold people accountable. But I envision a system in Santa Monica where we call it, I'd like to call it compassionate accountability, where we lead with compassion, we help and we provide services to those in need, but we also hold people accountable for the bad behavior. Because really, if you think about it, those individuals that are out there committing rapes or attempted rapes or assaults, all these horrible crimes that we've seen, stabbings and all kinds of stuff, they're ruining it not just for the people who live here and the visitors and all
Mm-hmm.
that, the housed population, but for the unhoused population as well. Because for every crime that's committed, for every horrible act that happens in our city, we're losing tourism, we're losing visitors, we're losing the tax base. Without the tax base, we can't provide the social services that people depend on, that are unhoused. So we need to hold the line. Like, we have to say, you know what, we're not going to criminalize homelessness, but we definitely are going to hold people accountable. And I don't care if they're housed or unhoused. If they're behaving in a bad way that's impacting negatively our quality of life, we're going to have to stand up and we're going to have to hold those people accountable.
Yeah, this is a interesting topic. This is something I'm super like. We haven't heard folks. I haven't heard anyone phrase it sort of this clearly in terms of the connection here. So we're talking about here is it's carrots and sticks. Social engineering might be another term for it, right? You're talking about capitalizing on the needs, the human behaviors. Like, if they don't care about getting a ticket, but they do care about fresh clothes or medical care or food or the PO box or whatever, right? Using the things they care about and leaning on them to bring people into line to a base standard of civil behavior, right?
Exactly.
You're not talking about trying to make people vote for a candidate
No.
or like wear a certain color on Tuesdays, but you're talking, like you say, hold the line on basic social behaviors. And like, that's an interesting approach to it. Like, and it leads into one of the questions that I've been asking everyone, which is, you know, does Santa Monica draw is Santa Monica's homelessness problem a function of its own policies? Like, and specifically, do the services that we provide create a magnet that draws people here? And if that's the case, do we need to look at not having as many services, or do we need to consider the fact that when we draw this many homeless people here, a certain percentage, to your point, not all of them, but a certain percentage, go on to commit crimes?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we balance that? So I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you do. It sounds like you agree with the notion that our services do draw people here. Like, sort
Yeah.
of alluded to it in some of the things
Yeah,
you
of
said.
course. I mean, I think you know, it's common sense. Like you see the lines, you know, formed. I mean, you go to the Salvation Army, you know, at a certain time, right by the Ken Edwards Center. I was just there the other day visiting with some seniors, you know,
Hmm.
who are having a hard time, you know, because it's just horrible what's happening in their alley adjacent to the Salvation Army, and there's just a line of people, you know, waiting to get, you know, services, whether it's food or you know, I think
Hmm.
that's what it is that they're waiting for. So yeah, it is true that the services do attract more of the problem, especially when other cities in the surrounding area in the region are not doing much. And that's another thing that to me is a very big issue is that we can't have one city shouldering the burden for the region. Like we need other cities to step up to do their part, right? Right now, I'm the current chair of the West Side Cities Council of Governments, and so I'm advocating for us to support a regional behavioral health center. So a center that will that will provide short-term and long-term treatment and beds for people suffering from mental illness. For me, this is very personal because I have a younger brother, you know, who you know, developed paranoid schizophrenia, and part of it I think was because of the drugs he was using. You know, unfortunately. Um, so you know, we want to be able to help people that can't really that lost control, like in some cases like schizophrenia. You know, people don't really have total control over themselves anymore, and so we want to find a way to provide more stability and also to address also some of the issues when when people are young. You know, a lot of times these diseases start peaking at like 17, between 17 and 21 years old. You
Hmm.
know, and so we want to be able to be more aware, be more conscious, align our policies and practices, you know, to provide more well-being for individuals in those situations. But you know, it does bother me, you know, when you start thinking like, well, we're spending a lot of money and the problem's getting worse, you know. And usually people think, well, if you spend more money on something, you decrease, you know, whatever problem you're trying to solve, and that's not what's happening right here. So it is a big question in terms of are the services attracting more people? Well, I just want to say that moving forward, you know, we should have a better system so that the services are being utilized in a way that we're not rewarding bad behavior. We're holding people accountable. I mean, if I could be in control of the whole thing, right, I would say if you're committing crimes in our city, you qualify for zero services in our city, you know, and you're cut off. So you can't be here, you know, eating free food or getting any type of service if you're trying to commit, you know, horrible crimes against our residents, you know. So that's something that I definitely want to explore. Maybe there's a card system. Maybe everyone that accesses a service in the city of Santa Monica has to apply for a card, you know, and then if they lose it, you know, we every nonprofit should have a way to give them one immediately. Um, and maybe that's an opportunity for us to track the type of services that people are tapping into so that we can really evaluate like what is being effective. You know, we can also monitor spending and hold those programs accountable, because that's another big problem is that we're giving a lot of money to various program services here and there, you know, but we really don't know like what impact is it having. Like it's obviously very difficult to house somebody and it's very expensive, but you know, if we are providing supports and services, you know, are we getting like are we getting something in return in terms of like, you know, less crime? Like you would think if we're feeding people, then they have no need to go out there and steal, you know, food, for example. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But if we're feeding people and someone's going out there stealing alcohol, you know, and you know, that's why I envision a protocol, you know, and a collaboration between law enforcement and social service providers where we hold those people accountable, where it's like, you're not going to do this anymore, you know, we're cutting you off, you know.
So you mentioned if you were in charge, you could do X, Y, and Z, right? And specifically in that case, right, you can't control what a nonprofit does. Like I get that,
Mhm.
but you are in fact on city council.
Correct.
Like you're one of seven
One of
people who are in
seven.
charge.
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't we done some of these things? Like what? These are great ideas, right? Like if people like the sound of this, they like the sound of what you're saying. They want these things, but one of the questions for me is like again, what I said earlier, like
Mm-hmm.
these seem like reasonable ideas, but you haven't been able. They're not implemented yet, right? Like you are in fact one of the people up there in charge.
Correct.
Like why hasn't more been done? Like you know, you are up there. Why haven't you been able to do more from your position on the dais?
Well, you know, we have done some of those things. So like the therapeutic vans, you know, the teams of people providing, you know, more effective outreach to people that are unhoused. That's happening already. So we've delivered on that. The on a city council of 7, as you pointed out, it takes 4 people to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had a split city council. Not everybody agrees, and so we're gonna have to continue, to fight, and to advocate, for some of these changes, and so we're bringing things forward. I think we're in the next in September. I think this next meeting, it might be either the next meeting or in October. So September and October, the city manager's coming back, with suggestions on how we can spend some money that we put aside, to deal with this problem. So I'm hoping that some of those funds can be utilized to support, a more robust, collaboration between social service providers and law enforcement. So we'll see in the next, couple of weeks, right, that we can advance some of these ideas
So if you can get the 4 votes.
if we can get the 4 votes, correct?
And I guess this comes to one of the questions around leadership and style, right? Which is that you mentioned having to fight for them. Why is the council so split? Why are you unable to bring folks to your side, or the other side when they come in? Why are they unable to bring you across? Like why is it that we have this fractured system? Like
Mm-hmm.
why don't we have more consensus? Why don't we have more unity, I guess? And unity, I don't like that word. That's not the right word. Why are council members unable to convince each other of the merits of their positions? And if, as we seem to be unable to do, to consistently move forward, is that not a failure of leadership? Because at least one element of leadership is being persuasive and building consensus.
Yes, correct. Well, I think, some people live in an ideological bubble. They haven't really had sort of a lived experience to really understand, you know, how things work. I'll give you like one example, sort of this syringes, needles,
Mm-hmm.
meth pipes, and drug paraphernalia, handing that out in our public parks. Let's say at Reed Park in particular. Um, you know, Common sense tells me that if you give out needles and meth pipes to drug addicts in the park, those people are going to be waiting for that service, right? You're going to attract, to the question, to that point that you made earlier, that, are we attracting more of the problem? And first of all, uh, I don't disagree with the science behind harm reduction, but do we have to do it in the park? Like, what does the science say, in terms of, this is the most effective way to do it? Like, the distribution should happen in a park, or the distribution should happen in a clinic. And so what I feel is that, that's like an example of like people being more ideological, like, oh, well, let's be compassionate, for the drug addict, right? And that's where I draw the line. Like, for me, I'm going to be compassionate, for the residents of this city, not for the people that are coming into our city with drug problems, expecting to get, free syringes and free meth pipes. We can't see eye to eye on that because, for me, I'm sorry, but it's like Oprah Winfrey. I heard her say the other day at the DNC. She said, we got to get back to common sense and
Mm-hmm.
stop the nonsense. And for me, it's nonsense, to believe that handing out syringes, you know, to people that are shooting up fentanyl. We've had a 1,000% increase in overdose deaths, since 2017 in the county of Los Angeles. That's not harm reduction, so we won't see eye to eye on that because there's people, on the city council that believe, that this is appropriate, that this is effective, and common sense tells me that that's not effective. And on top of that, the park should be for kids to play in, not for drug addicts to be shooting up or waiting for a handout to enable them to do more drugs. And that's where we there's no alignment. There's people believe a certain way, and as much as we can say, we don't like that approach. We're not saying that giving out a clean needle is ridiculous. We're saying that giving out needles in the park is ridiculous. So if you want to do it in a clinic, I could support that, but I can't support it, that we're doing this in our public space or our parks. I mean, 70% of the people in our city that live in Santa Monica, they're renters. These are people that don't have a front yard or a backyard. They depend on parks. They depend on the beaches being safe and clean. They depend on the public space. And I intend to protect the public space for the people in my city that depend, that,
Mm-hmm.
that want to see those parks safe and clean.
So talking about the harm reduction program, needle exchange program, whatever folks want to call it. You got some flack from folks recently over one of the measures you put forward at City Council to outlaw that program, right?
Correct.
And the criticism that was levied against you is that this program is a county program. The city has no control over it. Therefore, what you were asking for that night was pick the terminology will change: illegal, jurisdictionally impossible, whatever.
Yeah.
It was inappropriate. And taking a step further, folks are arguing and saying that it was inappropriate and poor governance for you to put staff in a position to have to hear that request.
Mm-hmm.
It culminated in yet another discussion item.
Yeah.
It's been a thing. So, like, how do you respond to that? Like that item, if the county, I guess, do you, in retrospect, in hindsight, do you stand by your decision to put that discussion item on in the way that you put it on? And moving forward, how do you feel about the discussion that's grown out of that regarding your ability to govern and your ability to work with staff?
Yeah. Well, not all laws are good laws. I mean, there was laws that forced Black people, to ride on in the back of the bus. You know what I'm saying? There was laws, that supported school segregation of children, based on race. Um, so, we need to challenge some laws that I think are wrong, and this was a more of a symbolic, political move on our part
Mm-hmm.
to send a very strong message to the county, that we do not like us not having, a local control over time, place, and manner of how they are implementing their harm reduction program in our parks. And so that's very important. So we also supported another item to change the state law, because you're right, that the state gives the power and the authority to the county to implement that program in our city. We think that's not a good practice. We think that the cities should have more local control over time, place, and manner, and so we intend to change that. So we're advocating for our state representative, Ben Allen, our
Mm-hmm.
senator, and Rick Chavez-Zabur, who's our assembly member, to take on that fight. To bring legislation forward so that we can change that practice. So for me, it's interesting because when I submitted that item, staff didn't like it, and staff said, "Let's change the item." So they said, let's just drop that item and then just bring forward this other item to change the state law. And I agreed to that, and it felt bad to me at that point. It's like the staff has tremendous amount of power. I think people don't realize that being on the city council, we get paid $14,000 a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's $14,000 a year. We have no office in City Hall. We have no staff that directly responds to us. So I don't even have someone that I can say, hey, can you check my emails? Can you respond to constituents? Can you schedule my calendar? We don't have that. So we're at a huge disadvantage. And what people don't realize is that the most of the power rests in the city manager. The city manager hires the police chief, all the department heads. We only get to hire three people: the city manager, the city attorney, and the city clerk. And so I don't like the idea that we're stripping away, authority from the city council. Like now, one of the council members said, well, because Oscar brought forward this item, now what we're going to do is give the power to the city manager to assess legality and feasibility on an item. And sometimes if you bring an item forward and maybe, for example, it's, incorrect,
Mm-hmm.
or there's some problems with the item, but through the discussion and the dialogue, we find a compromise or we find a better way forward. But to stop that communication, to stop that dialogue, I think is wrong. And so I'm opposed, to some of those changes. I
But you
think,
did vote for them, though.
yeah. Well, no, we voted to give them to have them come back with direction, to see what they come up with. So we
Okay,
haven't made a
I
vote
may have
yet.
misunderstood that then.
Yeah,
So your vote, you supported them studying
studying it. Yeah,
something to come back with future changes.
correct. Come back
Okay.
because I'm not opposed to seeing, but I'm not going to vote. I wouldn't support us curtailing the ability of a city council member to bring an item forward, even if it's wrong. Because in the end, I mean, to be totally honest and transparent, I didn't think it was going to pass. Like when I
Mm-hmm.
brought the item forward, I figured I'm not going to have the votes. You know what I'm saying? So, but I want to make a statement,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a little surprised that it passed. So now that it passed, it was like, okay, well, what do we do? Well, if they're saying that we can't we can't eliminate the drug paraphernalia, because the county has the authority to do that. Well, that's where it ends at that point. It's not like, I don't think I have the power to direct the police department to arrest people, at the park, for passing out syringes and meth pipes. Like, obviously that would be illegal to do
Hmm.
that. You know what I'm saying? So at this point, the item went forward, it passed, and the city manager and the city attorney, even though they were directed to eliminate the drug paraphernalia, they're not going to do it because it would, put them in a.
I got it.
There's checks and balances, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like, even though the item passed, they're not going to go and implement that item. So,
So we'll come back. We can come back in a second, but I want to make sure I did what I said I was going to do, which is that as time approaches, we can't go
yes,
forever. Um, there are other things I'm
yeah,
happy to bring up and talk
I'd
about,
love to talk about it. Yeah.
but was there something that you wanted to bring up and talk about? Did you have an issue that you wanted to make sure we have time to address? Something you particularly wanted to talk about? Like, if not, I got a list, but like, happy to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of issues, obviously, but I'll say this one. How about district elections? How
Sure.
about, you know,
I'm shocked.
yeah,
Shocked.
yeah,
This is the one you wanted to go
yeah.
to.
So the candidates that we're running against, right? I like to call them the establishment
Mm-hmm.
candidates, the establishment slate, even though they want to call themselves progressive. Well, how can you be progressive when you support spending more than $14 million against Latinos in
Let,
a voting rights case?
let's give people the nutshell so they understand what we're talking
Okay,
about.
sure.
So there is a lawsuit against the city under the California Voting Rights Act, alleging that there is racially biased voting against Latinos in the city, and and forcing the preferred remedy would be to push the city to adopt 7 districts
Mhm.
in the city instead of universally at-large voting.
Correct.
The city council has opposed settlement of that lawsuit since
Mhm.
its inception
Mhm.
to untold millions of dollars in legal
Mhm.
fees. It's gone up and down various courts. Still waiting on a new trial date
Yeah.
for the current system.
Mhm.
But that's what we're referencing here. That's what this is all
Correct.
about.
Yes.
And you are a proponent of the lawsuit. You're not a let's say I don't think you're not a
I'm not a
listed
plaintiff.
plaintiff, but
No.
you are a proponent. But you are heavily involved in this. To say transparency wise, it was the Pico Neighborhood Association
Correct.
that brought it forward,
And my
of
wife.
which you are, yeah, and your
Yeah.
wife, of which you were a past president.
Correct.
So you are very familiar and with this case. But
Correct.
just so setting the stage for folks.
Yes.
So to your point, it's the cities, and I think this is also an interesting point when we talk about power and who has it, what have you. Like, you have slate mates, right? You've got
Mhm.
Phil's. You've had allies on the council, and yet this lawsuit persists.
Correct.
You haven't had 4 votes to
We haven't
settle
had
it,
4 votes.
and so I guess what does that tell you? You'll get into it, and I'm sorry I interrupted you to set the stage for it, but like, what does that tell you about the city of Santa Monica and the current council?
Well, I think what it tells me is, number one, that power behaves like power behaves. So when it comes to power and control, the establishment doesn't want to change. Even though, like, all the research shows that at-large elections in Santa Monica and throughout the country were used to marginalize people of color. Here in Santa Monica in particular, it was used to make sure Black people wouldn't get on the city council. That's the history, of the city of Santa Monica. So why would a progressive group like defend a racist election system, to me, is mind-boggling. And how these candidates, can come in and claim that they're progressive, but yet, they're spending millions of dollars to protect power and privilege. And I think that's, contradicts, this whole notion that these candidates are progressive, or that, the establishment is a liberal progressive organization. What they don't care about racial justice. What they care about is power. And let's just be very clear. This is about power, retaining it. And it's not to give people of color more power. I mean, if we win district elections, the Pico neighborhood ends up with permanent representation,
Mm-hmm.
and that right there is better than what we have. You know what I'm saying? Because the system that we have now, I mean, if you look at the demographic profile of our city council, historically, most of the power went to the north side. Historically, I mean, you're looking from the 19 since we changed to the at-large election system. The South Side had very little representation. The Pico neighborhood had zero representation, and then in terms of people of color, right? So we and look what happened. I mean, without political representation, we ended up with environmental dumping. The freeway cut our neighborhood in half. The city dump is in our neighborhood. The maintenance yard for light rail is in our neighborhood. Social neglect, gang violence, concentrated poverty, a whole lot of issues impacted us. I mean, even like some would argue, some of the horrible crimes that have occurred against children in our community, all connected to the lack of political representation. And so I totally understand that because I was on the school board for 18 years and I was many times the lone voice, fighting for things for the Pico neighborhood. And I was able to win a whole lot of good resources. Edison Language Academy, got fully funded. That
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the plan. The plan wasn't to fully fund the reconstruction of Edison Language Academy, but me being on the school board made the difference. We have a Pico Branch Library. We were the only neighborhood in the city with no library. Think about that. And the largest concentration of youth in the city was in the Pico neighborhood, and we had no public library. Now we have a public library. So I totally understand what advocacy can do to change things, what political representation can do to change things. And so I feel that a better system is district elections, because then every neighborhood in Santa Monica, not just the Pico neighborhood, but North of Montana, Sunset Park, Pico neighborhood, Mid Wilshire, all of those neighborhoods will have a representative on the city council. And I think it'd be better to have a government where all parts of our city are on the dais, because then now you get to have representation. And we're a city of neighborhoods. I mean, that's really what we
Mm-hmm.
are. Santa Monica is a city of neighborhoods, and so every neighborhood has its unique challenges, its unique issues, and I think that every neighborhood deserves a voice on the city council.
Do you feel a sense of response? So, where I'm going, the city has lots of things. Money's a challenge. Several candidates have come in and talked about um, legal expenses that the city's incurring, not necessarily
The
district-based
voting
voting.
rights case, yeah.
Yeah, but like I asked them, I've asked them about it. You
Yeah,
can listen to other ones, you'll
yeah.
see. But like, do you? I guess, do you feel a sense of responsibility over the amount of money that the city is spending towards this case, given the financial shortfalls and challenges that the city has?
It hurts me that people have continued to waste money, on these, I call them, ego driven legal adventures. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are trying to, they wouldn't use their own money this way. They're using public dollars to protect their power and privilege, but they wouldn't gamble with their own money in the same way. And do I feel a responsibility? Well, I'll say this, that when we first filed, the first letter of complaint, if the city would have agreed to say, okay, let's engage the community, in a discussion about district elections, let's start, drawing the maps, let's figure out how we're going to make this happen, we're going to do the switch, it would have cost zero. Like the plaintiffs, they would have spent,
No, it would have cost something.
like, maybe I heard it was like $35,000,
Yeah, I
let's
mean,
say.
yeah,
you know
it wasn't zero, but it certainly wasn't. And,
yeah.
I agree with the phrase "untold millions." We don't know how many millions have been spent on legal fees so far, right? We just don't know.
Well, I heard it
You might
was.
know
I
because
heard it
you're on
was.
council,
Well,
but I
yeah,
don't know.
but I heard it was between. Let's say, I think it would be safe to say that it's close to 14, $15 million. I'm not sure. I don't remember the accurate number, but it's about that much. That's way different than thirty-five thousand
Mm-hmm.
dollars. You know what I'm saying? And so the people that are responsible for getting us into this lawsuit are no longer on the city council. There's only one person left, is Gleam Davis, right?
And she's
And
retiring at
she's
the end of this
retiring. So
season.
it's just amazing to me, if you think about it, that all the people that fought this case, they all got kicked off of council. One of them is resigning on her own. Um, so I think that says a lot. I think, in terms of justice, in terms of what's right, it's like Martin Luther King Jr. said, the the universe, tilts towards justice, and I think, this case is very interesting. We won in trial court, we got overturned in appellate court, and then the Supreme Court overturns the appellate court. We're back in the trial court. It's a long case, and sometimes, fighting for what's right, takes a long time. Um, and I really, for me, it's like the city's attorneys are the most expensive attorneys in the state of California, like at least one of the most
Mm-hmm.
expensive, and so I think those attorneys, they have an incentive to continue fighting this case. It's billable hours. Like, these people are getting paid while the attorneys for the plaintiffs have made zero money. They're out of pocket from their own expenses to fight this case. They received zero in compensation to this point. So you have to ask yourself, like, well, would the city's attorneys fight this case pro bono, with no money? I doubt it. You know what I'm saying? But we're lucky to have people that care about justice, care about fair elections. We have seen that district elections makes it cheaper for people to run. Aside from representation, it's also cheaper because now you don't have to run citywide. You just have to run in your own district. And so we think that it makes democracy more accessible. So Overall, in terms of the responsibility, I have worked like to try to end this lawsuit. I haven't had the support on the city council. Like we have been a split
Hmm.
again. We have been split on, and when it comes down to it, I think as people are worried about, well, who do I have to run against? They're not thinking about, well, wait a minute, was there injustice in the Pico neighborhood? Like, is it true that Latino and Black residents in Santa Monica were marginalized because of the at-large election system? And if it is true, then I would like to find a remedy for that. And that's not the approach. Like, people are not saying that. They're saying essentially, this is not good for, renters' rights,
Hmm.
the group that's in power, or this is not group. In fact, someone said something that to me was astonishing. They said, well, I don't support district elections because it'll give the homeowners more power. You know what I'm saying? Like more of a voice. And the funny thing about it is those individuals that are fighting this district case, except for one, are all homeowners. So it's kind of odd to hear people say what they say. Ultimately, it comes down to not racial justice for the people that are opposing to settle this case. It comes down to control and power. And I think that right there it says it all. It's just unfortunately, the city of Santa Monica, the residents of the city are paying for people, making these legal adventures, a burden, a liability for our city.
And so, again, we are running up against time, but I did want to come back to something you said at the very beginning. So you mentioned a safe and a vibrant Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
What did you mean by vibrant?
Vibrant, what I mean is like, look, Santa Monica has this vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like it's innovative. Every time I go, to the beach and I see the sunset, I just I'm full of gratitude. I'm grateful. We have all our problems and challenges, but you know what? I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the country. You know, I've lived in Austin, Texas. I've lived in New York. I've lived in Washington D.C. Um, you know, and I always miss Santa Monica, especially in the summer. So we are in one of the best places in the world, to live. Um, we are an innovative city. We're a hub of technology. This Silicon Beach thing. Um, we have, an amazing, I think, public education system overall. I mean, it's got its challenges, but I think, we do there's pockets of like greatness, in our
Hmm.
in our community. We have Santa Monica College. I mean, my son right now is a student at Santa Monica College, saving us a lot of money. We couldn't afford, all the high price of sending him to Santa Cruz. So he was such a nice boy who's like, hey man, we can save money, by doing it this way. So that we have access to those resources, that my son can, attend a community college that's providing him a great education. You know, my other son started the ninth grade at Santa Monica High. Um, I want what every father wants, for their children, is a safe city, a city that provides opportunities, for their well-being. And that's what I mean by that. I mean that, you know, culturally, we're known around the world. We can be a beacon of hope, and inclusivity, for the rest of the nation. And that's really what I'm working for, to sustain the diversity that we have in our city, and to provide access and opportunity to, high levels of education and also economic advancement. We have a business sector, I think, that's very diverse, and we want to, continue to give people opportunities, to come to our city and really enjoy themselves. It's almost like, for the mental health of the residents of our city, for them to go out, on the boardwalk, go to the pier, for visitors, from Los Angeles or from the region or the country or the world to come to Santa Monica and really find a place of culture, of innovation, um, you know, to just, bring out the best, in humanity. And also, like, with some of the challenges, like our approach to some of these challenges, I think can serve as an example. I always say, what can Santa Monica teach the world? Because we're resource rich. I mean, not right now, we don't have all the money, but there was a time where we had huge reserves, aside from these self-inflicted wounds, that our city government has brought forward, against itself. Um, we can get back to that place, and that's where I hope to be a part, of that leadership that brings the city of Santa Monica back to a place, where we could do some things and try some things that many other cities can't do because they don't have the resources. And I think by doing that, we can lead by example, and we can inspire others, to tackle problems, in a way that I think creates more justice, more fairness in society.
Got it. And so again, the way these conversations always go, we can always do more. We can always talk more.
Yeah,
There's lots of stuff to talk
yeah.
about, but we're going to be approaching our time. Did you want to give a quick closing statement about give us your final pitch?
Yes, I think voters, first of all, I want to thank voters, for giving me the opportunity to serve. I am a representative. Like, this is not my seat. This is not my identity. Like, I don't see myself as like Councilman de la Torre. Some people, I find it odd, that they love the titles, and I'm not into that. I'm sincere about my service to this community. I served 18 years on the school board, not because I saw it as a stepping stone to higher office. I was really passionate about making our public education system one of the best, and to deal with the achievement gap and some of the inequalities that existed between the South Side and the North Side schools. I think I've done a good job. I tackled, the gang violence problem in the Pico neighborhood. We made a significant difference in that. So I just want to bring all that experience and leadership, into the city council. I have, I want to. There's four. They say 4 years, but it's one term. And when we were elected, it was COVID, right? So we didn't
Mm-hmm.
even. I didn't even enter City Hall for almost like I can't remember. We had Zoom meetings and all that. It was just very chaotic. But we've brought stability to the organization. We got good momentum in terms of making this a safer city. We implemented some change, to do that. We need to keep the momentum going. I hope that people will consider voting for me and my slate. The team that I'm working with Phil Brock, with Dr. Vivian Rocknian, with John Putnam, to make sure that we continue the momentum that we started in 2020. I mean, it was really a revolt, at the ballot box by the residents of the city of Santa Monica. I don't think it's ever happened in history where, four incumbents are taken on and three of them are kicked out of office. So we started a movement in our city. I'm born and raised in this city. I have deep roots in the city. I love the city. I care about the people here. I've shown that, through my actions, through my commitment in public service, from starting a nonprofit, serving so many years on the school board, you know, entering City Hall at probably one of the craziest times in our government in terms of like the disarray and the chaos that was going on. And we are on the right path. And so I want everyone to hold the line, stay the course, because we are going to become a better city for everyone.
Got it. Cool.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thanks for
Appreciate you,
coming
man.
out.
Yes. God bless.